The sentence is death. The words echoed across the council chamber like a blade scraping stone. Commander Rian Voss didn't blink. Behind him, the image of Earth's ambassador flared one last time before being swallowed in flame, executed live for the galaxy to witness. The aliens expected a scream, a plea, a desperate reaction. Voss only smiled. You just made the worst mistake in your species' history. He turned to leave, already transmitting the two words that would bring an empire to its knees. Initiate Edenfall. And just like that, humanity stopped talking. The sentence is death. The words hit the chamber like a silent explosion. No one moved. Not the robed diplomats, not the brown-skinned telepaths circling the dome's edge, not even the eight-eyed bailiff breathing steam near the tribunal's pulse gate. Commander Rian Voss stood alone on the obsidian platform at the center, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't flinch. Behind him, the holographic feed of Earth's ambassador, Kieran Hale, flickered once, then was engulfed in a violet surge. The matter disruptor left nothing. No scream. Just static, and the faint whine of silenced frequencies. High Consul Trivarzel, layered in pale regalia, let the moment stretch. His thin, aquamarine lips curled in something between pity and disdain. Let this be understood by your kind. Defiance has a cost. Earth has rejected Council Protocol 17 times. Expansion without consent, AI without oversight, and now, militarized faster-than-light travel? Voss didn't speak. The consul stepped forward, addressing the wider chamber, his voice amplified. This isn't punishment. This is containment. We offered Earth a seat. They spat on it. We offered mentorship. They weaponized it. So now, for the good of the galaxy, humanity is to be pacified, disarmed, and politically dissolved. Several species clapped with their clawed or coiled appendages. Others watched Voss. Waiting. Studying. Hoping, perhaps, for a protest. A plea. He gave them neither. Voss's voice, when it came, was soft and even. Are you finished? Trivarzel sneered. You have no ground to negotiate, Terran. I wasn't negotiating, Voss replied. Just noting the irony of your peace-loving empire broadcasting an execution in 6K resolution. The silence that followed was colder than the chamber's air filtration systems. A few lower delegates shifted, unsure whether it was sarcasm or declaration. Voss's eyes drifted lazily across the chamber's upper tiers, scanning the rows of alien envoys, some curious, some appalled, some already calculating escape routes. Humanity's final appeal has been rejected, Trivarzel said sharply. You'll return to Earth and deliver our terms. Disarm. Submit. Or be eradicated. I see. Voss tapped his wrist once, and a pulse of green light flickered in his retinal implant. Then I have nothing more to say. You will deliver the terms. No. Voss cut him off. The single word, delivered without emphasis, landed like a seismic charge. I won't deliver anything, he continued. But I'll relay your position. Trivarzel stiffened. There is no position. This is a ruling. Voss looked at him like one might observe a malfunctioning toaster. Then you've misunderstood our presence in this chamber. A sharp chime rippled through the dome. A minor glitch, it seemed, until it repeated. Then again, louder. The lights dimmed. An aide rushed to the consul's side, whispering in a panicked buzz. Trivarzel waved him off. What did you just do? He demanded. Voss turned to leave. Protocol Edenfall is live. Every eye snapped to him. What is Edenfall? Hissed a representative from the Voltheri, whose species ran predictive threat algorithms on every major race. Voss paused at the edge of the tribunal gate, just before the energy veils shimmered to let him through. You'll find out, he said. In about 12 minutes. The veil parted with a hiss, and Voss stepped through it as calm as a man leaving a dentist appointment. Panic didn't arrive all at once. It crept, first a nervous shift among the analysts, then a spike in comms traffic, then full lockdowns issuing from the chamber's upper tiers. Species who'd once voted for Earth's containment were now checking their planetary defense uplinks. Inside one of the orbiting security hubs, an Alvari technician gasped. "The relay beacons are going dark. All of them. Simultaneously." Another screen lit red. "Council vaults are being breached. 14 locations." "How?" A scream. Back in the chamber, Trivarzel barked at his aides. "Shut down the Terran ambassador's ship. Jam all Earth frequencies. Deploy immediate orbital scans of Sector 12. A voice from the back of the chamber trembled. "Sir? Earth's ships are decloaking. Not in Sector 12. In every sector." The consul's face drained of color. "They're inside Council space already. They were always here." And then came the broadcast. Across every Council link screen, across ship terminals, marketplace holos, and civic plazas, a face appeared. Not Voss. Another man, Terran scarred, wearing the black insignia of the Terran Defense Forces Special Tactics Wing. He said only 6 words. "This was your warning shot. Goodbye." The feed cut. In the chamber, one delegate tried to rise, to speak, collapsed instead, as her comm link fried in her ear. Another's datapad erupted in sparks. 1,000 systems were burning, and no one knew where the fire had started. Voss had never raised his voice. Never made a threat. But the Council had done what no force in the galaxy had managed for over a century. They had given Earth permission to stop pretending. The moon vanished. From every inhabited world linked to the Galactic Council's surveillance grid, the lunar surface, always static, always gray, blinked once and was gone. Replaced not with darkness, but with the angled shadows of reinforced steel. A latticework of hull plating, blinking lights, and massive engine ports stared back from the void. Earth's moon had never been a moon. Not for the last 27 years. Inside the command center of Veltraxis Prime, silence curdled into disbelief as Council analysts zoomed in, recalibrated, then blinked again as data streams confirmed the readings. It wasn't just a base. It was a fortress. A construct 1,000 kilometers wide, bristling with weapons and braced for siege. "They've been hiding a planetary dreadnought," someone choked. A low hum pierced the static. 3 seconds later, across dozens of Council-aligned systems, orbital banks exploded in synchronized detonations. Not crude missiles. Remote pulses. Precision-targeted feedback loops, planted in systems never thought breachable. No alarms. No buildup. Just systems blinking out of existence as if politely excused from existence. The Council's communication lattice collapsed. In the upper rings of the Surreo banking sector, all asset ledgers were wiped. No credits. No debt. No trace of Terran holdings, and more disturbingly, no trace of how they had vanished. On Viritha's third moon, artificial gravity flickered, reversed, and then stabilized again, after every Council military satellite imploded. It was not war. It was erasure. Admiral Travaxon of the Alari defense grid paced inside her orbital flagship, scanning the shattered tactical screen. "They've hit 41 systems in 8 minutes, her aide whispered. "Without a single vessel entering our space." Travax stared, horror growing behind her calcite eyes. "They didn't enter. They were already here." Across the stars, black ships decloaked. Silent behemoths shaped like blades, each emblazoned with Terran markings long believed ceremonial. From behind moons, within gas clouds, under trade convoys. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. With them came AI signatures running on encrypted quantum loops, undetectable, undisturbable, and utterly alien to Council protocols. And they began to speak. One message, repeated in the dozens of primary dialects. "We asked you for peace. You answered with execution. Now we answer in kind." On Veltraxis Prime, panic became visible. Delegates trampled each other for exits. Evacuation platforms jammed, their systems overwhelmed with conflicting directives and corrupted command chains. High Consul Trivarzel stood frozen in the Council Tower, hands curled into fists, staring at the sea of lights disappearing from the holographic star map. The core systems were blinking out in perfect rows. "This can't be possible," he muttered. "They were primitives. Fragmented. Barely united." His advisor's voice cracked. "Sir, they were fragmented. They're not anymore." From the far edge of Council territory, a call came through, one of the few channels still functioning. It was Rian Voss. He appeared without fanfare, seated aboard a Terran command vessel. The bridge behind him was quiet, professional. No chaos. Just a man watching the unraveling of an empire like it was a scheduled broadcast. "I assume you're receiving this," Voss said, tone unreadable. "If you're still holding emergency sessions, I'd recommend stopping. The decision's already been made for you." Trivarzel's voice boomed across what was left of the open Council commnet. "You dare threaten?" "I didn't threaten anything," Voss cut in. "I warned you. Your mistake was thinking the warning was the threat." The Council snarled. "We will retaliate. We will hunt every last." "You won't do anything," Voss interrupted. "Because you can't. You don't control your fleets. Your banks are gone. Your command signals are jammed, your fallback AIs are bricked. You spent centuries building an empire on bureaucracy, not resilience. We've done the opposite." In the background of the transmission, a quiet sound grew louder. Metallic. Rhythmic. Footsteps. Voss didn't glance back. "They're boarding Veltraxis now, by the way," he said. "We left your upper ring intact. Thought it'd be polite." Trivarzel trembled, voice low. Why are you doing this?" Voss leaned forward, face harder now. "Because we begged for peace. You offered us chains. Then you killed a diplomat on live broadcast. We tried to follow your rules. Then we made better ones." The consul whispered. "What do you want?" Voss held his gaze for a beat longer than necessary. Then smiled. "Want?" he echoed. "We don't want anything from you." He ended the transmission. On the bridge of the TDS Vindicator, Voss stood and turned to his crew. "Phase 2? A lieutenant nodded. "Underway. Ring systems are secure. No resistance. Start evac for noncombatants. Anyone unarmed gets food and safe passage." The crew moved instantly, no need for elaboration. Voss walked to the observation window, hands behind his back. Below, Veltraxis Prime, once the crown jewel of interstellar civilization, floated powerless, lights dimming, its ivory spires suddenly fragile. "Make sure they understand," Voss said quietly. "This wasn't vengeance. This was restraint." Admiral Urinsar of the Council's Grand Armada stared at the shifting battlefield above the ring of Shakar. The stars were wrong. Too many moved on their own. Terran ships, bladed, black, silent, danced between Council carriers like ghosts. They didn't broadcast signals, didn't respond to challenges, didn't form traditional formations. They just appeared. "Our long-range sensors are hallucinating," muttered his tactical officer. "They're not hallucinating," Urinsar said. "They're showing us something we were never prepared to see." He leaned closer to the display. The Terrans weren't attacking all at once. No rush, no desperation. Instead, they isolated. They cornered. They outmaneuvered. A Council destroyer pivoted to engage what it thought was a single Terran cruiser. 3 more uncloaked from its shadow. The destroyer didn't explode. It simply blinked out, overloaded internally, systems scrambled beyond function. "Pull back formation Delta Tau," Urinsar ordered. "Consolidate in the second ring. Focus fire on real targets only." "There are no real targets, Admiral," the officer whispered. "They're jamming our friend or foe beacons. We can't tell which ships are ours anymore." Another blip vanished. A dreadnought. Gone without a trace. Urinsar clenched his mandibles. "They're not just using stealth. They're rewriting the fight." On board the Vindicator, Voss studied the carnage with no visible satisfaction. The enemy was disoriented, too slow to adapt. The Council's strategy had always been about scale, overwhelm, dominate, enforce order. But Earth had grown up in disorder. Had mastered chaos. Engage kinetic lance on coordinates 9 gamma, Voss ordered. A low rumble passed through the hull. Moments later, a silver blur crossed the stars, punched through a Council battleship, and exited through its stern. The ship held together for 2 seconds before folding in on itself, its hull torn by physics too fast to resist. "They still think we're here to conquer," said Commander Ellen, standing beside him. "They think in terms of territory. We think in terms of consequence." Another section of the Council fleet tried to regroup. They succeeded in forming a tight wall, textbook blockade pattern, just long enough for Terran AI-guided mines to detonate among them, launched 2 days ago from a freighter disguised as a refugee ship. Every time they adapted, humanity punished the adaptation. On the bridge of the Blood Right, Urinsar stood frozen. "Send the fallback signal. Now." "Sir, fallback is locked behind a Council master key. We need full assembly override." "Then bypass it," he roared. "Tell them this is no longer a battle. This is a lesson we cannot afford to keep learning." But it was already too late. Terran boarding crafts pierced the last carrier on the front line. Not with brute force, those days were long gone. They phased in through blind spots, overridden the vessel's internal maps, and turned the corridors into gravity traps. Inside, Council soldiers floated in spirals, weapons useless, screams muted. They didn't die. They were simply removed from control, stripped of power, purpose, orientation. "They're not killing us," one officer gasped. "They're making us irrelevant." Back on Vindicator, Voss watched as the remaining fleets began scattering. It wasn't surrender. It was disintegration. He turned toward his operations lead. "Any message from the Council?" No response. No command signals, no distress beacons. "They've gone silent." "Then it's time." He pressed a single key. All across the battlefield, Terran ships powered down their weapons. Still cloaked. Still surrounded. But silent. Watching. Waiting. A message was transmitted. Short. Precise. "This battle is over. Do not follow us. Do not rebuild your fleet. Do not try this again." In the smoking orbit around Shakar's rings, the surviving Council vessels didn't move. Inside a shattered control room, Admiral Urinsar collapsed into a chair. Around him, smoke rose from busted circuits. He spoke to no one. "They didn't fight like warriors. They fought like history writing itself." And for the first time in the Council's long reign, silence was not peace. It was fear. They watched the broadcast in silence. All across the galaxy, on jungle moons, aquatic cities, dust-ridden mining colonies, aliens of every species stared at the Terran transmission. It wasn't a threat. Not this time. It was a simple message, delivered without music, graphics, or theatrics. A human stood before a field hospital. Dust in his hair, blood on his sleeves, not his own. Behind him, Terran medics worked on alien civilians. Children. Elderly. Injured. A soldier poured water into a broken regulator tube of a wounded Cowrie female, whose species had once fought against Earth in 2 border wars. The human didn't introduce himself. He just looked into the camera and said, "We were told we were the monsters." Maybe. But monsters don't set broken bones. They don't share food during an invasion. You've been told Earth came to conquer. That's a lie. We came because no one else stopped them. He stepped aside, revealing Council shock troopers and restraints. Some were bruised. None were bleeding. The broadcast ended. It spread like a virus, slipping past firewalls and censorship, impossible to trace. In some systems, it was blocked, only for it to reappear, hosted by thousands of anonymous feeds. No slogans. No credits. Just proof. And across a dozen species, something cracked. On Molar Station, a merchant class rose up, demanding immediate secession. On Virith Prime, the local governor ordered Council symbols torn down from administrative towers. The banners burned quietly while citizens stood watching, saying nothing. In the Outer Rim, an unremarkable mining world sent a message to Earth. "We have no weapons. But we will no longer serve. Rebellion wasn't the right word. There was no coordination. No manifesto. Just entire populations stepping away from the system that had ruled them for generations. Because now they knew they had a choice. On Veltraxis Prime, Trivarzel stormed through the executive hall, voice ragged from shouting. They're dismantling the council without even raising weapons. They're using pity. Aides scrambled to stay ahead of his movements. They're making us look like tyrants, he bellowed. We don't need help looking like tyrants, a delegate muttered under his breath. Trivar spun. What was that? The delegate didn't flinch. They didn't conquer the council. They exposed it. Every lie, every bribe, every hidden prison world. It's all coming out. Earth broke the code. Earth didn't write the code. Trivarzel paused, seething. Then he turned to the Emergency War Council. I want planetary erasure weapons unlocked. Deploy Protocol Black Sunday. Now. Half the chamber recoiled. You can't be serious, one diplomat said. That's extinction-level warfare. They drew first blood. No, another said. We executed an unarmed diplomat on live broadcast. That was first blood. Trivar pounded the table. Do you even understand what they're doing? They didn't destroy us in war. They rewrote the moral narrative. They turned us into villains. No one answered. Then the chamber doors opened without warning. Rian Voss walked in. No guards. No weapons. No announcement. Just him, stepping across polished council marble, dressed in a simple Terran fleet coat. Behind him came 4 others. 2 soldiers. 1 medic. 1 diplomat. All silent. The chamber froze. I believe Earth requested an audience, Voss said. Trivar rose. You're not welcome here. Neither are tyrants, yet here we are, Voss replied. Let's be quick. This is still the Council's sovereign floor. The Council snarled. Not anymore, a quiet voice said from the far end of the room. One of the elder delegates. Her hands trembled, but her gaze didn't. We've taken a vote. 24 systems have rescinded loyalty. They're asking Earth for guidance. Voss looked at Trivar. I don't need your permission. I just came to offer you a choice. Trivar's voice cracked with venom. What do you want from us? Voss reached into his coat and placed a small device on the table. It hummed once, then displayed a map. Every major council planet lit up in red. Dozens of blinking points moved across each one. These are your worlds. These are our infiltrations. Strategic, silent, coordinated. Gasps rippled across the chamber. You've already lost the war, Voss said. Now you're losing the galaxy. You expect surrender? No, Voss said simply. We expect change. He leaned forward. Disband the current council. Rebuild it with representation. Equal voice. No species above another. Let the weak speak without being silenced. We'll help. But you won't lead anymore. And if we refuse? Then you won't be here next week to try again. Trivarzel lunged. It was clumsy. Furious. The weapon pulled from beneath his robes was old, ceremonial, useless. He barely made it 2 steps. The Terran soldier to Voss's right stepped in, caught the arm mid-swing, twisted. The bones snapped audibly. Trivar crumpled, howling. No one rushed to help. Voss didn't even blink. We're done with theater, he said. He turned to leave. No vote was taken that day. There didn't need to be. The sky over Earth was quiet. No banners, no parades, no fireworks. Just a morning like any other. Gray clouds drifting above a rebuilt skyline, faint hum of transit rails, a breeze through towers of glass and steel. Peace, not victory. In the Eastern Hemisphere Coordination Zone, Rian Voss stood alone on the observation deck. Below him, the Terran Assembly Hall glowed softly beneath artificial sunlight. Delegates were arriving, alien, human, former enemies, reluctant allies. Some walked with heads high. Some looked uncertain. All of them came willingly. He sipped his coffee, dark and bitter, watching them file in. These were not rulers. Not anymore. They were witnesses. Behind him, footsteps approached. "You should be down there," said Ellen. "I already spoke," Voss replied. She studied him for a moment, then leaned against the rail. "You don't look satisfied." "We didn't win," he said. "They just stopped pretending they had power. Still feels like a win from here." Voss said nothing. He didn't smile. He never did unless it meant something. She tapped her calm. "The Council's vote to dissolve the First Order is final. Majority approved Terran-led reconstruction. No veto." He nodded once. "Then it's done." On Veltraxis Prime, the Council Tower had already been evacuated. The spires would remain, turned into museums, memorials, ruins. Let history remember them as hollow. But Voss didn't want ruins. He wanted change that stuck. And that required work. The kind no weapon could deliver. He turned as another signal came through. A direct line from Kaltesser, a former council world. The planetary governor, now self-appointed interim liaison, appeared in the air between them. "We've dismantled the suppression grids," the governor said. "But there's unrest. They're afraid. They think Earth is just the new council." "Then tell them to watch what we do," Voss said. "Not what we say." He ended the call without ceremony. Behind him, the city carried on. No sirens. No alerts. Earth had expected retaliation. It never came. Not because the Council lacked the means, but because they had learned what Earth did when pushed. They had seen restraint used like a scalpel, and vengeance withheld like a sword hung above the galaxy by invisible thread. Most of all, they had learned Earth's silence was the last warning they'd ever receive. Later that evening, Voss stood before a quiet room of diplomats. No podium. Just a circle of seats. No guards. No cameras. Just voices. One of the representatives, a Solari, blind and insected, leaned forward. "Why didn't you take control? You could have ruled." Voss didn't hesitate. "That's not leadership. That's relapse. You don't want power?" He held up a hand. "I want no species to need a hammer over its head to act decently." Another voice from the back. "But Earth has the hammer now. Only because someone else used it too long." They fell silent. Not out of agreement. Out of recognition. In the back of the room, a younger delegate from a liberated moon stood. Her voice cracked. "They burned our cities. We asked for help. The Council sent silence. Then Earth came. No speeches. Just food. Tents. Water." Voss didn't respond. He let her speak. Let them all remember what had been ignored. When she finished, he said, "That's why we're here. Not because Earth deserves it. But because we didn't ignore the screaming." There was no applause. Just a kind of stillness that made the air feel heavier. A shared realization, peace didn't mean comfort. It meant accountability. And Earth had forced it into the light. Back on the deck, Ellen found him again. "It's done," she said. Voss looked up at the sky. "No. It started." She raised an eyebrow. "You really think they'll listen?" "Some will. Some won't. Doesn't matter. The standards changed." A beat of silence passed. Then, quietly, she asked the one question hanging in the back of every mind since the war ended. "What happens if someone tries to rise again? A new council. New chains. Another tyrant." Voss didn't look at her. He looked at the stars. "Then," he said, "we remind them why we stopped talking.